Well, good evening and welcome to this fourth of six sessions on the six Bardos. Um, Last week, we explored the Bardo of Meditation, or the Bardo of Samadhi as it's also called. And that Bardo of Samadhi is a sub-Bardo of the Bardo of Living, because obviously we are meditating and resting in Samadhi uh, while we are alive in this life, which the Bardo of Living is this long Bardo between conception in the womb and then until the Bardo of Death begins, which is when we get the news of our terminal diagnosis or something like that. But when we are entering the glide path to our final, to what will be our death. So that the Bardo of Living has two sub-Bardos, and when it's the Bardos are taught as six Bardos, sometimes they're taught as three Bardos, and then it's just the Bardo of Living and the Bardo of Dharmata and the Bardo of Becoming. But in Padmasambhava's original text, it's taught as six Bardos, and the Bardo of Living has two sub-Bardos, and the first is the one that we did last week, the Bardo of Meditation. And then tonight we will do the second of the sub-Bardos of the Bardo of Living, which is the Bardo of Dreaming. And last week, the whole point of the Bardo practice of meditation is to interrupt the flow of the dualistic thinking that is characteristic of the Bardo of Living and the way that we interact with all appearances that we encounter with the mistaken view that they are separate from me. Entirely, self-existently. So they obviously these appearances do have an existence separate from me, but we take them to have and possess all of the qualities that I perceive in them, rather than that I am a co-creator of the world that I inhabit and perceive. So the goal of that Bardo of meditation was to recognize and rest in the nature of mind, which is non-dual emptiness and luminosity. And so if we are able to do that, then we are very well prepared to recognize the Bardo of clear light at the end of the Bardo of dying, when all of the six senses have dissolved into space, or I'm sorry, so the six senses dissolve into consciousness, and then consciousness dissolves into space. And so as the capacity for a mentally afflicted mind to create our perception decreases with the dissolution, the capacity of clear light and the direct perception and experience of the nature of mind grows and grows. So as our habitual tendencies of mental afflictions and linked with the body are decreasing, the capacity for awareness in its pure form increases. And we're going to tonight then, with the Bardo of Dreaming, find another one of these interruptions of the ordinary dualistic process that is characteristic of the Bardo of Living. And that is what we experience every day when we go to sleep. When we fall asleep, then we fall into a state that is sometimes completely unconscious, and sometimes we have a vague or quite scattered or fragmented awareness of appearances that seem to be totally beyond our control and which are fantastic and sometimes frightening, or sometimes seem to be grandiose, or sometimes just plain boring. That's the dream state. And so then every night, so we fall into this facsimile of the death process every evening when we fall asleep. And then we go through the reverse process when we wake up. We return to the so-called real world from this world of unconsciousness or true fantasy, and we return to what most of us think of as the real world, and it begins all over again. We are returned to the Bardo of living and have left the Bardo of dreaming for a time. Padmasambhava, in this text that we've been studying, teaches three primary methods for working with the Bardo of dream, and actually bringing that experience, the Bardo of dream, onto the path of enlightenment. And these three are, first of all, dream yoga. That's the principal one that we are going to be working with tonight, and looking at some of the more recent developments in sleep research, really, called lucid dreaming. And then the second, so the first of these is dream yoga. The second is called illusory body. And dream yoga is the practices that work with our dreams. And so our dreams after we fall asleep. So sometimes it's called nighttime dream yoga. And then the second is illusory body practice, which is sometimes called daytime dream yoga. And then the third is called luminosity yoga. And this is the practice of working with deep dreamless sleep when we are normally unconscious for typically a couple of hours every night. And as you can imagine, because these are parallel developments and real analogs, the falling asleep every night and the whole process of the dissolution that occurs at the time of death, the Bardo of dreaming is a tremendous preparation for the Bardos that come with dying and the two Bardos after that as well. So to gain mastery, we first have to awaken to the dream, and then we awaken from the dream. The Perfection of Wisdom in 20,000 Lines puts it this way: a bodhisattva reveals all phenomena as similar to an apparition, a dream, a mirage, an echo, an image, a reflection of the moon in the water, a magical creation, a village of the sprites. Even nirvana, I say, is like a dream, is like an illusion. If I could apprehend any phenomenon more exalted than nirvana, of that also I should say that it is like a dream, like an illusion. The Lord has said that dream and waking are indistinguishable. Ultimately, all phenomena are like a dream. So to realize that, or to recognize what Padmasambhava is saying there, all phenomena in our waking state are like a dream, that is to awaken to the dream. And then the process of awakening from the dream is really the whole process of enlightenment. And this was described by Shakyamuni Buddha, who is the historical Buddha of 500 BC. Described in a number of different places in the sutras with this scenario or vignette from his life. Shakyamuni was sitting under a banyan tree when a Brahmin named Drona approached him in awe, asking if he was a god. The Tathagata, which is an epithet for the Buddha, said, "No." The Brahmin asked if he was a kind of celestial being or a nature spirit, but again the Buddha denied it. When he asked him if he was a human, he denied that too. Finally, Drona asked him if he was neither divine, nor human, nor non-human, then what was he? He replied, I am awake. And Lama Allen has glossed this very importantly, because the question of are you a human is the one that really throws us. So because we know that the Buddha had parents, went through a maturation process, and was eventually died. And so the reason that he answered no to that question, the Lama Allen teaches, is because Drona would have thought that if he said, yes, I am human, that he would have thought that he was human like Drona is human, and like the rest of us are human. But the Buddha knows who he is because he is awake. And so even though he is human, he's not a human like the normal unawake or dreaming human beings. So when the Buddha said, I am awake, how do we take that? What does it mean to be awake? The normal Western scientific understanding of being awake is that we are awake during the time that we're not sleeping. And you don't get more awake than that. You're either awake or you're sleeping. And then in the morning when we awaken, so when we fall asleep in the Western perspective, we enter a state of unreality and fantasy. And then when we wake again in the morning, we return to, quote, reality. But from the enlightened point of view, our experience of this life is not the awakened state. It is a dream, a longer dream that we call samsara. And what we usually refer to as a dream is a dream within the dream of samsara, or a dream within the dream of our ordinary waking state. And our everyday waking life is the primary illusion. So that it's very important in our working with dreams to recognize the similarity or the equivalence, really, of the nature of the appearances that arise to us in the waking state and the dreams that arise to us while we are in the dream state. In order to train most effectively in these practices, it is very important to understand the concept of appearance and emptiness. You can't really fully appreciate one without the other. Conventionally speaking, we think that something either exists or it doesn't exist. And appearance is something that exists because it can be perceived and conceptually grasped. If something doesn't exist, then there is nothing to perceive. It is just a vacuum, as it were. There's nothing there. In our ordinary experience, appearance and emptiness are mutually exclusive. But according to the Buddhist view, however, the actual nature of phenomena is the inseparability of appearance and emptiness. And this inseparability is the working basis for our dream yoga practices. Padmasambhava put it this way, as it's cited in Natural Liberation. It is like this: all phenomena are non-existent, but they appear to exist and are established as various things like white and red. That which is impermanent is grasped as permanent, and that which is not truly existent is grasped as being truly existent. Consider that these things, which are without permanence, stability, or immutability, have no inherent nature. They are like illusions. In Buddhism, it's often said, and a very important point, is that there are two ways of perceiving reality that we engage with. One is the relative and also called conventional reality, and the other is the ultimate. So the relative is the world that is produced by causes and conditions and is impermanent. And the ultimate is a world that is not caused by causes and conditions, and where phenomena have no inherent existence, and you realize their luminous, non-dual luminosity and emptiness as their true nature. But relatively speaking, everything in our world and experience appears to exist. But absolutely speaking, those same entities are not what they appear to be. So they appear to exist independent of me in the way of what is called naive realism, meaning that all of the qualities arise with the appearance, all the qualia that I perceive, that's all the subjective, the colors even, and especially how I feel about it and how it functions for me. All of these are somehow, when I am deluded, they seem to appear as part of the object itself inherently. But Padmasambhava is telling us that these things, even though they appear to exist, they are non-existent. So that is a paradox that is really core to the understanding and the development of wisdom in the Buddhist tradition. When we begin to analyze these so-called self-inherent or self-existent objects that appear to us in our everyday world, they fall apart either under analysis of the kind that we do with analytic meditation, or they fall apart also under the analysis of contemporary physics, as we went through in the first class, I believe it was. They function, it's important to realize, of course, that things function perfectly on the level of conventional reality without truly existing. So we are not questioning that something is actually appearing to our senses, but we're questioning how it actually exists, what appears to us, how do we understand it to truly exist? And that is what we are going to try to have direct experience of using our dreams. Fundamentally, in the Buddhist and especially Dzogchen and Mahamudra traditions, there is just space and awareness. But far from being a mere absence, this union of space and awareness is the source of all phenomena in samsara and nirvana. And when you recognize this ultimate nature of appearances as this indivisible union of space and awareness, then you are on the path to enlightenment, and you are viewing the world or appearances purely. You're viewing pure appearances when you actually see their nature. And when you are deluded or mistaken or taken in by the illusion, then you are viewing impure appearances dualistically. And this then is the cause of and the root of all of our suffering in the Buddhist canon. It is this primary mistake of viewing that which is non-existent as being existent, meaning things that are created by impermanent causes and conditions as somehow being real existent things independent of my perception of them. So we use the practices of the Bardo of dreaming to help us directly realize that all appearances of waking and dreaming are illusory dream appearances. And tonight we'll begin our exploration with the practices of dream yoga. In the Buddhist tradition, the theory and practice of dream yoga goes back 2,500 years and has a 2,500-year-old database of experimentation and verification of people who are carrying out the same experiment and then comparing their results. In the study, let's see. So we'll get to that, those practices of Buddhist dream yoga here shortly. But first of all, I'd like to look at some practices of recent developments in psychology that were first developed in the 1980s in the field of sleep research, which is called, very well known, lucid dreaming. And one of the real leaders in this field is Stephen LaBerge. And LaBerge and Alan Wallace, who is one of my main teachers and teacher for many of you here, were collaborators when they were both at Stanford in the 1980s and collaborated on a number of workshops. LaBerge teaching the lucid dreaming aspects of the workshops, and Lama Allen teaching shamatha and dream yoga aspects of the workshops. And it's interesting that lucid dreaming was not really recognized as an accepted psychological phenomena until the late 1980s, when LaBerge was able to prove the existence of lucid dreaming with some clever laboratory experiments. So we have 2,500 years versus about 45 years of experience, but the techniques of lucid dreaming are very powerful and can really help us to, with one of the essential parts of our dream yoga practice, which is recognizing the dream as being a dream. And this really points to the essential element that distinguishes a lucid dream from an ordinary non-lucid dream. In a lucid dream, you are aware in real time while you are dreaming that you are in fact dreaming, and that all of these appearances that you're experiencing are just dream illusory appearances. And in an ordinary non-lucid dream, we are taken in by the appearances and believe them to be real, just as we are taken in by the appearances of our waking life. It's a quite exciting and sometimes frightening experience to have your first lucid dream. And especially if it happens unintentionally or spontaneously. I remember my first lucid dream, which was in 2003 at the end of my first Leirung at Diamond Mountain in Arizona. And after a month of solitary practice, my mind was in a different state than when I began. And I remember one morning in the last week of the retreat that I woke up, I thought I woke up in the morning, and there was an image that appeared to me of something like the Joker, a malevolent clown that was frightening and scary. And it was so vivid, so really present. And I knew that I was awake, but I couldn't shake this image, and it lasted for 5 minutes or longer. And the frightening aspect of it was that I thought I had gone crazy. I pondered for some time that I wonder if I'm ever going to return to ordinary reality again, or is this the new reality? And eventually I did wake up, because even the really bizarre thing about it was I thought I was awake, but it was a dream image that I was perceiving, but I was awake. So the important thing about lucid dreaming is that you know that you are dreaming, but you don't actually wake up, even though you have all of the clarity of the waking state, but you have the vividness, all of the appearances have the vividness and immediacy and power and bizarreness of the dream state. So the first thing to do is to recognize that you are dreaming. And then once you begin to develop some experience with lucid dreaming, you can really begin to stabilize and to extend them. And at first, the period of lucidity, unlike my first experience, is usually very fragmentary and maybe only a few seconds before it disappears, because you don't have the stability of your shamatha practice really for it to persist for longer periods of time. So after we begin to first recognize a dream as a dream, then we have two goals to move on beyond that. And the first is that we have to keep the dream going. That is, that we don't wake up or we don't fall back into ordinary, or you don't fall back into dreamless sleep, that is. So it's keep the dream going. And a typical response to your first lucid dreams is that, I can't believe it, I'm lucid dreaming. And you wake up. So that is one of the extremes of agitation in shamatha practice, right? That you lose your stability because of excitation. And so this is why LaBerge asked Lama Allen, one of the reasons that Lama Allen was asked to teach with LaBerge in his workshops was because LaBerge recognized that shamatha practice, with developing this balanced mind of clarity and stability, was absolutely essential for cultivating lucid dreams as well. So the first goal then is to keep the dream going. So don't wake up and don't fall back into dreamless sleep. But the second goal then is to maintain lucidity, and that means that you don't fall back into ordinary dreams, ordinary dreaming. So we will work on both of those. I'll give you some techniques for working on both of those from both, initially from the research on lucid dreaming. So one of the things that becomes really obvious to you as you remain present with your dreams and are able to remember more of your dreams, and you just become more facile with this whole dream world, is that dreams are filled with scenarios and images and experiences that are so weird and so unreal that you can't believe that when you are in the experience of dreaming, that you take them at face value, and that they don't wake you up just because they're so weird. And this includes everything from going fishing with your dead father to water running uphill, flying, all sorts of bizarre things. And even just the very simple fact that you dream that you're in Barcelona and you know that you went to sleep in Annisquam. So that just, we take it all at face value rather than recognizing this is strange. So one of the things that we really need to do, and we can use that strangeness of dream appearances to actually help us to wake up in the dream. And that is by doing state checks. So when something really bizarre happens in a dream, we train ourselves to recognize its weirdness. And we can say to ourselves, have a little mantra, that's weird. How weird? Might I be dreaming? And then you do a state check actually to check if you're dreaming. But you can do that, prepare yourself for that with something that Lama Allen calls prospective mindfulness, and sometimes also prospective memory. But it's a memory to do something in the future when a particular condition arises. So when I see something weird in my dream, I will. Or you can do that also with your shopping list. When I get to the fourth aisle and look down and wonder what was on my shopping list there, I will go down halfway and recognize, oh, it's the Milton's crackers on the left. So you can create prospective memories like that. When such and such happens in the future, I will respond in this way. And so during our waking state, then, we can train also and just ask 10 or 15 times a day at random times, am I dreaming? Am I dreaming? And then especially if something strange happens, which happens quite frequently sometimes, these weird synchronicities and all kinds of bizarre things happen in the waking state, right? That's weird. How weird? Might I be dreaming? And so you can also then make a list of things that you do every day, just routine events like tying your shoes, walking through a doorway, reaching for a doorknob, putting your keys in the ignition, something like that. And just make a prospective mindfulness agenda then, and say that when I put my keys in the ignition, well, that doesn't happen very much anymore, does it? That would be weird. How weird. I must be dreaming. But for me, it would be weird if I didn't put the key in the ignition, because I don't have a key fob or a key fob car. But so you make a little agenda then. Every time that I touch a doorknob, I will ask, might I be dreaming? And so you just get into the habit then of using this prospective memory. And then when something really weird happens in your dream, the goal is to recognize its weirdness and use that weirdness then to wake up to the fact that you're dreaming. So first of all, you recognize something is weird and ask yourself, might I be dreaming? And then you actually do a state check to check whether you are dreaming or awake. There are a number of different qualities between the dream state and waking state that you can really use to check your state. So one of these is that in the dream state, you are not bound by gravity. And so in the dream state, one of the common experiences is flying. So obviously, if you are flying, there's a good chance that you're dreaming. But also, when you jump up into the air in your dreams, because you're not bound by gravity, you float back down very gently. You don't just jump up and like you do in the waking state. So Also, another strange thing that happens in dreams regularly and predictably is that when you look at something printed, like text, a newspaper, or uh, a digital clock, also, for instance, um, you look at it and notice what it says. So you look at a headline and you see mom, the word mom, and then you look away from the newspaper and look back again, the word will have changed. And this is typical and predictable, so you can use that as a state check also. And a third one that is really very playful is that you can pull your nose. And if you're in a dream state, your nose will extend like Pinocchio. So Bonnie seems to have some experience with that. You wouldn't know it to look at your nose, but I must not be dreaming right now. So you first of all say, recognize the weirdness. That's weird. How weird? Might I be dreaming? And then you do one of these state checks and get into the habit of doing these state checks during the waking period also. It was very amusing the first time that I encountered these lucid dreaming teachings from Lama Allen was in 2014 in Phuket, Thailand. And it was really amazing. There were signs up, in the lunch and the meal lines. That's weird. A little further down at the next station, how weird, etc. And people were always pulling their noses and jumping in the air. And so don't feel weird about doing it. You're just doing your practice. This lucidity triggered by something in the dream as being really weird, how weird, and using that then with a state check. So you do a state check in the dream as well. So in the waking state, you're just training yourself to do the state check in a dream. So in a dream, you pull your nose, you jump up in the air and float back down, and then you have your answer. And that answer to your state check is going to typically shock you into lucid dreaming then. And so you will feel like you're awake, but the bizarre dream images continue. So this is what, when something in the dream itself is what triggers the lucid experience, is what LaBerge calls DILDs, dream-initiated lucid dreams, the acronym DILD, D-I-L-D. And you can also use what he calls wild, waking-initiated lucid dreaming. And this is when you are, during the especially for as you grow older, you wake many times during the night, and you are oftentimes, this is how you remember dreams, is that you wake sometime during the dream or at the end of the dream. And typically when you are really paying attention and developing your mindfulness in the dream state, you'll notice that as a dream is expiring, that there will be a feeling of surfacing, as if you are swimming up to the surface of the ocean or something after doing a dive. And you can see the light of the water, the surface of the water above you, and it just feels like you are about to break the surface. And when you get to that point of feeling that you're surfacing, just take a moment to pause and don't break the surface. But at that point, go back and remember details of the dream that you are just leaving. And then reset your intention to recognize the dream for what it is, a dream. And then when you, because you haven't fully awakened, you haven't broken the surface, you can often re-enter the dream at that point, and you'll enter it lucidly. So this is why it's not in the dream that you are stimulating the lucidity, but it is the waking that you bring back into the dream, and that is then the waking initiated lucid dreaming. It's very important, our motivation when we are lucid dreaming. Normally, you might, like I did for my first lucid dream, have lucid dreams just spontaneously. And there are definitely people who are just gifted, I guess you would say, that are just good lucid dreamers, and they, without any practice, they just are lucid dreamers. But for most people, it really requires motivation. And the best motivation and the most powerful is going to come from knowing how lucid dreaming fits into your whole spiritual path and what you can really get from it. Because it really takes some excitement and zeal for lucid dreaming to get you to do the practices that are really required to develop lucid dreaming. And I am not a prolific lucid dreamer, but when I do and that's partly because, well, for a number of reasons, but I have had many lucid dreams nonetheless, and so I'm a streaky lucid dreamer. And it's, of course, the streaks of lucid dreaming occur when I am doing the preparatory practices. And part of that is motivation. As you are falling asleep or you're lying in bed, you prepare yourself with a powerful intention that you are going to recognize your dreams for what they are, as dreams, when dream appearances arise. And you can say that out loud, a powerful intention, an affirmation. But the most powerful motivation, of course, is going to come now when we switch from lucid dreaming. That's about all I have to say about lucid dreaming. I recommend very highly Lama Allen's book that he is based on his collaboration with Stephen LaBerge and his extensive background in dream yoga and the Buddhist tradition, of course, which is called Dreaming Yourself Awake. And that is, I think, the greatest, most authoritative book on the subject. But so when we switch now from our approach from lucid dreaming, which really is just there within the lucid dreaming community, there really isn't any purpose to it, it seems. It's as if lucid dreaming is a very fascinating, vivid entertainment. But what do you do with it once you develop that skill? So, of course, lucid dreaming, being a scientific pursuit in the field, anyway, of dream or sleep research, doesn't go into what you could do with it. Although there are some applications that are being explored. So, for instance, elite athletes, or you can use, I should say, more like extreme sports gurus can really use lucid dreams to go well beyond anything that they could possibly do more extreme than in their waking experience. And athletes also can train muscle memories and really create kind of elite physical performance in the same way that they more normally rehearse physical performance with visual imagination. So this really becomes like visualization on steroids when you're doing this as lucid dreaming. And also, it's possible that you can use lucid dreaming as a way of investigating the psyche and work with your neuroses, bad memories, or powerful obstructions or obstacles that you are experiencing in your life, and work with those in the state of lucid dreaming. But the most powerful motivation really is what is described in as the purpose of dream yoga by Padmasambhava, and that is to wake up to the fact that all of these appearances of not only the dream state but of the waking state are just illusory dream appearances. And the powerful motivation, so when the whole way that you schedule, or I mentioned that when I do the preliminaries, that they usually work for me, that I can lucid dream if I go through the preliminaries, but usually I just fall asleep without making it a major meaningful event. And so the way that you begin your session then, when you go to bed and you are preparing to fall asleep, is to set your motivation with this powerful intention. And these are Padmasambhava's words here. In order to free myself and others from the ocean of samsara, I would like to engage in this practice of dream yoga, which has the power to liberate the suffering, fear, and confusion of samsara. May all beings achieve perfect happiness and complete awakening. So with that powerful motivation, and this is, in Buddhism, it's said that it's a motivation of bodhicitta is so powerful because there are so many sentient beings that are going to benefit from it. And so it naturally just has greater karmic impact. And then after establishing your motivation for doing the lucid dreaming practice, you assume the posture of a sleeping lion. And this is the posture in which Buddha Shakyamuni left this world in his parinirvana. And you see this very frequently in huge sculptures, some that could be 100 feet long or so in Southeast Asia. And this is the Buddha. Sometimes they're called the reclining Buddha also, but it's the Buddha falling into his parinirvana, or entering. And so in this, this is actually recommended as a way to fall asleep every night. And this is if you have the choice anyway of arranging your bedroom in this way, your head is to the north. You are lying on your right side in your bed, so you'd be facing west. Your head, the palm of your hand is under your cheek, and then your left hand is on your thigh, on the side. So this is the sleeping, or the sleeping lion pose. And then you prepare yourself with a visualization. And there are 4 that are commonly listed in the Bardo texts, or also dream yoga texts, which come from the 6 yogas of Naropa. And the first 2 of these are Guru and Yidam visualizations. And these are really specific practices of Tantra. And so we won't go into those tonight because those are just not really part of the scope of what I'm going to be talking about. But there are 2 other visualizations that are very powerful and very effective. And the first of these is called the unexcelled syllables. And you see an illustration of this visualization on the handout. And so you begin with, first of all, setting your motivation, taking the posture of the sleeping lion, and then you visualize at your throat chakra, which is right at your throat, this 4-petaled red lotus. And on the 4-petaled lotus are arranged 5 syllables, Om Anu Ta Ra. And you begin, so when you're lying on your side, the flower petals are not flat like, they're not horizontal, they're vertical. So you are visualizing this 4-petaled lotus and with the syllables, and you begin by holding your mind focused on the lotus. So just the 4-petaled lotus without the syllables. And then you place the syllable Om in the middle of the lotus. And then on the right, so Om in the middle, and then Ah syllable on the front petal, Nu on the right petal, Ta on the back petal, and Ra on the left petal. And when you're doing this visualization, you can just visualize them in the Roman script. You don't have to try to memorize them in the Tibetan script. And then you hold the full visualization clearly in your mind, and then gradually shift your focus to the syllables. So this is really a powerful exercise in mindfulness, just to remember what to do and to have this visualization. But what you're doing, especially in subtle body practice, is you're bringing your awareness down from the head, which is where we spend most of our waking time, down to the throat, which naturally is the center for dreaming in these Tibetan subtle body layout. And so we focus, bring our attention down from the head to the throat with this visualization. And first of all, you focus on then, first of all, the full visualization, so the whole lotus. And then you focus on the middle, the Om in the middle for a while. And this one will probably be the one that captures your awareness for the longest period. And when you begin to feel drowsy then, and notice your senses starting to withdraw from outside contact, you focus on the Ah syllable in front. So you wait until you're really feeling drowsy and that heaviness, beginning to sound like the state of the dissolutions of the whole dying process. And then as you begin to feel a sense of increasing heaviness and your body starts to relax, you focus on the syllable Nu on the right petal. And then when you feel yourself falling more deeply into a sleep state and your body feels heavier still, focus on the back syllable, Ta. And then finally, just before falling asleep, when you think, I'm just about to go, then you focus on the syllable Ra on the left pedal. And then the text says, when you are really about to fall asleep, and you think, now I'm going, you go back to the Om at the center. So this is really effective, and it's because you're falling asleep with mindfulness, and bringing your energy into that throat chakra area. And it's very important right at the end, when you are bringing your focus back to the Om syllable, and you can imagine how challenging this is when you are falling asleep and just relaxing, and your mind normally would be just scattered and wandering and going off and feeling a great sense of delight, probably, in not having to concentrate on anything. That you actually focus your awareness mindfully on this whole four petals and the syllables in this consecutive order. And it's very important through this whole process, and then especially after you get back to the Om, just as you're about to fall asleep, that your mind isn't distracted from the appearance of the lotus to what you're going to do tomorrow, to the argument that you had earlier in the day, or whatever. But it's very important to maintain your shamatha practice at this point, which is able to maintain your focus on this image without distraction. And this, in my experience, is a very, very powerful and effective prelude to lucid dreaming, and a cause, really, of lucid dreaming. And if you are unable to visualize the syllables, if this is just too busy for you, or your mind is too scattered and you're just not able to go through this quite elaborate visualization, then Padmasambhava recommends an alternative, which is called just simply the bindu. And here you visualize a pale red bindu, or a sphere of red light, which is always luminous, kind of translucent and radiant, radiant sphere of red light at your throat chakra. And so this has kind of the intangibility of a rainbow. So it appears, but you can see through it, in a sense. And again, it is most important at this time not to become distracted when you are focusing on the bindu. And so you just focus on this very simple visualization, then right into falling asleep. The dream yoga practices that Padmasambhava describes begin with, just as with lucid dreaming, with the recognition of dreams, meaning that you recognize that I am dreaming. This is a dream. This is not ordinary waking reality. And yes, this is weird. This because it is a dream. So you recognize the dream for what it is. And then after the recognition, the practices move on to transforming the dream. And while we are falling asleep, we experience the dissolution of our five senses into a deeper level of mind, which is called the substrate consciousness. So many of you know exactly what that term means, and which is a we could talk the rest of the night about that. But in Mahamudra, and I believe in Dzogchen also, but you really see this elucidated in Mahamudra, there are not just 6 consciousnesses, there are 8 consciousnesses. So the 6 that are typically described in Buddhism are the 5 sense consciousnesses, and the 6th then is the mental consciousness, which elaborates the five sense consciousnesses and makes them into things with names and purposes and feelings of liking and disliking and all of that. But the seventh consciousness in Mahamudra is the afflictive mentation, and then the eighth is substrate consciousness, which is called the Alaya Vijnana in Sanskrit. And this is exactly what happens. So when we are falling asleep, our sense consciousnesses dissolve back into the substrate consciousness, which is, does that sound familiar? Exactly what happens with the dissolution during the death process. And so part of the reason that even though the sense consciousnesses have dissolved into the substrate consciousness and are no longer actively engaging with an external world, part of the reason that our dreams are such convincing illusions is that we actually have sensory experiences of all five senses, or all six consciousnesses, really the five senses and mental consciousnesses, while we are dreaming. So we can hear things, we can see things very vividly, we can smell things, taste things. All of the senses seem to be operating, and this table in a dream would feel just as solid as it feels to me touching it right now. So this is part of the reason that the dreams are so convincing in their illusory quality, because the six consciousnesses, the senses and thoughts also, are manifesting and fully operating, and we react to these appearances of objects and thoughts exactly in the way that we do when we're awake. The really alluring and attractive ones we crave and cling to, and the really scary ones, or ones we feel aversion for, are ones that we push away or that we use as a stimulus for anger and hostility. So it's our response is the same to these solid seeming appearances, but they are really bizarre appearances that are causing us to have that reaction. So each person, when they begin to recognize dreams and become stable in them, and then begin to transform dreams, will be motivated by their own desires and goals for what to do with these dreams and how to transform them. So they can be either, really just vivid entertainments, or laboratories for psychic, or explorations of the psyche, I should say. Or you can follow the whole point of Padmasambhava's instructions and use them to develop genuine spiritual experiences that have a genuine transformative potential to see the world as it truly exists. And so after you have become familiar with recognizing the dream when it appears as a dream, then you can really begin to play around with these dream appearances and transform them. Padmasambhava describes it this way, the potential of dream transformation. Apprehend the dream state and go to the bank of a great river. Consider, since I am a mental body of a dream, there is nothing for the river to carry away. By jumping into the river, you will be carried away by a current of bliss and emptiness. At first, because of the clinging of self-grasping, you won't dare. But that won't happen once you have grown accustomed to it. Similarly, by seeing through all such things as fire, precipices, and carnivorous animals, all fears will arise as samadhi. So you can use the dream to transform your experience, and what you're going to recognize is, because these are just dream appearances, and this is not a real person wearing a black hood with a knife in his hand approaching me, I don't have to be afraid of it. I don't have to react in the normal way that I would if I believe the appearances to be real. And Lama Allen tells a story frequently of a woman, student of his, who is a very adept lucid dreamer, who described her experience one night as seeing an attacker come towards her, approaching her with a knife. And she recognized, this is a dream. There's no reason to be afraid. So instead of transforming the attacker into a butterfly or a bird that flew away or something like that, what she did was she walked towards the attacker, took his hand with a knife in it, and plunged it into herself as the real proof that there is absolutely nothing to fear, that this was a dream body with a dream knife. And so instead of just having the fearful image turn into something pleasant, it was to just embrace it, walk towards it, and do the deed yourself, knowing that it was all just a dream. And you can also, with dream transformation, you can set up a date with the Buddha. So you can have a powerful aspiration as you're going to sleep. Padmasambhava says that, quote, I not only want to recognize my dreams, but also I want to travel in my dreams to the Buddha fields to hear the profound teachings of different Buddhas. And then you can rendezvous with the Buddha that you're hoping to rendezvous with, and just chat with them and get answers to your questions. And my particular favorite is to schedule an appointment with Tilopa on the banks of the Ganges and listen in on his instructions to Naropa as he is giving him really the first Mahamudra teachings that were ever recorded. So that you can really play around with that. And dream transformation, so you can really begin with your playful attitude by transforming a flower into a butterfly, or mundane things like that. But it gets more interesting. I'll just like to share a lucid dream I had about 5 days ago, because I was beginning to think about lucid dreaming, so they happen then for me. But I became lucid in a dream. So this was, I think, about 5 days ago. It might have been 6. The timing is really quite important. So I woke up. I awoke in a dream, realizing I became lucid in a dream, uh, and was in the body of Donald Trump. And I knew that Trump was going to Scotland and was having a meeting with the president of the European Union, Ursula von Leyen, I think it is, and a few other European dignitaries and important people as well. So I am the mind of Donald Trump. And I can feel the body, wearing those like Filene basement suits that don't seem to fit him, and the red tie and all of that. So I saw Ursula coming towards me, and because I was now Donald Trump's mind, one of the thoughts that I had as a Trumpian thought was, what can I do to really change the story of this Epstein problem back home? And so I approached Ursula and I said to her, I know you want to talk about trade, but what are we going to do about the problem in Gaza? And we have to do something to feed these kids now. I mean, tomorrow. We want massive shipments of food tomorrow. Let's work on this and get it done. And so we started talking, and we realized that we had to set up within an hour a conference with Macron so that we could give him credit for the idea. And so I told Ursula, you Europeans take care of all the logistical ideas and how to make it work, and I'll take care of Netanyahu. And so it was so interesting that in the mind of Donald Trump, this felt really good. The fact that I was doing something virtuous and very unexpected felt good. And I thought, I might do some more of this. I might do something about Ukraine. And I know this is really going to be a surprise to my MAGA base, but I think they're going to come along with me on this. And so it was really strange that it might have been the next morning, or not more than a couple of days later, where all of a sudden I started reading in the newspaper that Trump had really changed his mind on Gaza. And he no longer agreed with Netanyahu that there wasn't any starvation. And he said, we've got to take care of these kids. We've got to get them some food. Now, I'm not claiming credit for that. But it's just an interesting experience. The fact that I was not watching Donald Trump, but I was his mind. And thought, while I have his mind, I might as well do something interesting with it. Yeah. And then it wasn't long, so it was the first day it was Gaza, and then Ukraine also shortening the ultimatum timeline for Russia before sanctions, and so who knows? I might return to that dream and see what could happen with that. So that is what you could call nighttime dream yoga. And there's so much more that that could be said about that, but I really want to be able to at least give a cursory look at the whole of the dream Bardo. So you can, return to that at your leisure, do some more research. But probably with that, just knowing exactly how to get into lucid dreaming, you can definitely begin to play with it with just those instructions. So the next element in the Bardo of dreaming, the first being dream yoga, or nighttime dream yoga. Then the next is called illusory body practice, or daytime dream yoga. And Padmasambhava's teachings on daytime dream yoga begin with this very provocative statement. It is like this: all phenomena are non-existent, but they appear to exist and are established as various things. So by non-existent, Padmasambhava is not telling us that nothing exists whatsoever, because that would be crazy. And it would be, nobody would pay attention to what he has to say after that. But rather, he is inviting us to recognize the illusory nature of not only dream phenomena, but of waking phenomena as well. Our normal waking experience is just as diluted and fantastic as our dreams are, and as devoid of inherent objective reality as dreams. So this can be the hard one to really fathom. And it also obviously is the most powerful. And you can use the lucid dream experience of nighttime dream yoga to really become familiar with what it feels like to be living in this dream state, and to recognize that this is a dream. And there's just a texture of your consciousness that you can just feel the dream. And what we're trying to do then is use what you learn in the nighttime dream yoga to inform the experience, the whole feeling of perceiving the world, and recognizing this too is a dream. So Padmasambhava is not saying that nothing exists, but what he's saying is that we create something out of these appearances that doesn't exist. And in other words, we reify, which is the philosophical term for we make real to ourselves something that is abstract or something that isn't really real. So we make something concrete. We make it in Ian McGilchrist terms, we turn a process into a thing, something that is insubstantial and has no fixed concrete reality. We perceive it as a fixed concrete thing that exists independently of our own perception. And this could be called the first primordial dream sign of Buddhism. This would be your state check, really, the ultimate one for Buddhism. If you are reifying, you are dreaming. If you are seeing things as having a separate existence from you, completely independent of you, then you are dreaming. So we look at, with these practices of the illusory body, we look at the appearances of the world just as we're out and about and sitting in this room right now, just like we would a dream or a rainbow. And whether it is a positive situation that we are finding ourselves in and having a good time, or a negative situation, which is frustrating or painful or very disturbing, we have to remind ourselves that both the good and the bad appearances are simply dreams. And this can be more difficult, frankly, with the good times, because with the good times, we want to take credit for them, or even say, this is my good karma ripening, taking credit and pat yourself on the back. But the bad things that are happening to us, the suffering that is caused, we're very happy to admit, no, this is not me. These are just dream appearances that are happening, and try to see exactly what are the causes of them, but to see the illusory quality of them. So it's very important to practice with the good times, because that will help develop that uh, wisdom muscle to see all appearances as delusory and illusory, so that you're prepared when the bad times strike. And you might be more disabled and have to rely on your instincts at that point. So this is Padmasambhava's pith advice on how to do daytime dream yoga practice. He says, place your awareness in a non-conceptual sphere without focusing it anywhere. So you enter a non-conceptual state in which you could say, openly present, but without focusing on anything, and just awareness. Then direct your mind to all appearances of yourself and others, and think, all these are just appearances. They are not real. And even say out loud, this is a dream. This is really a lot of fun to do when you are in your what is often called the post-meditation phase of your practice. So in Buddhism, it's said there are two times of practice, basically. One is on the cushion, and the other is your time between times on the cushion. And the times off the cushion, the post-meditative state, is said to be tremendously important, and some texts even say it's more important than the time on the cushion. For one, because you are spending a lot more time, typically, unless you're in a long retreat, off the cushion and going about your daily business than you are on the cushion. And also, it just has a real power because this is what you are trying to do. Essentially, your time on the cushion is just like being at boot camp, and your time off the cushion is when you are really engaging with the world and putting to practice what you've learned on the cushion. So this is where you really are employing your ethics and your worldview, is off the cushion. And if you, especially when you're going through a period of lucid dreaming, and then you're spending most of your day meditating, as in a long retreat, and then you go for a walk in a beautiful setting like the national park quality scenery that I live in Colorado. It's fun just to take it all in as a dream. All of these appearances are just a dream. So you can say that, this is a dream, this is a dream, this is a dream, and just repeat that. But it's really that feeling, kind of the texture of reality that changes. Appearances become more vivid, more dreamlike, because you're not seeing things, you're experiencing the whole process of your engagement with sights and sounds and turning them into appearances. And you can watch the whole thing unfold, the whole process unfold. And one of my favorite ways of really doing this practice of daytime dream yoga comes from a Mahamudra practice from the 9th Karmapa, Wangchuk Dorje. And this is in a section of a text, that long text that he composed, and this section is called Taking Appearances as the Path. And so this has 4 different stages of analysis. The first is that all appearances are mind. So I will just say that walking around and looking at 14,200 foot Challenger Point on my left and say, all appearances are mind. These solid rock mountains of the Sangre de Cristo range, this is mind. So all appearances are mind. And then the second is mind is empty. All appearances are mind. Mind is empty. Then emptiness is spontaneous actualization. So emptiness is not a nothingness, a voidness. Emptiness is spontaneous actualization. And then the fourth is spontaneous actualization is self-liberation. The appearances you don't have to chase away or ask them to dissolve. They just self-liberate. And you just watch the all appearances that you encounter and engage with go through this four-step process. And that is a very powerful way of doing this, I think. Illusory body practice. Boy, the time has really flown on me. So these practices really point directly to a key difference between the daytime practices of lucid dreaming and those of dream yoga. Because when you are doing a state check in the daytime, when you're working on your lucid dreaming practice, and you, for 10 times, look at a digital clock and look away and look at it again, and it's the same time, and you do that for 10 times, you can be assured that you are awake. But Padmasambhava is asking us to realize that even though I pass the state check and I know that I am awake, these are waking appearances, that I am still dreaming. And from the perspective of pristine awareness, it actually is a lot more accurate to say that waking reality is not like a dream, it is a dream. And as Lama Allen can do the kind of Tibetan accent so cutely of Gyatro Rinpoche, he would say, "This is dream." Kind of gruffly. And so you can do that also as you're walking. And then I just am going to wrap up very quickly here with the third practice, which is Luminosity Yoga, which is all about lucid dreamless sleep. So normally during the periods of sleep that we go through every night, there is a period of being totally unconscious. And this is, so there's no REM activity, no dream images. And we enter the substrate. And the substrate is said to be vacuous and unaware. There's no awareness in it. But actually, it has the nature of luminosity. And the substrate is actually where all of the karmic seeds that we have gathered and created during this life are stored. And this is actually what really transfers from one lifetime to another, is substrate consciousness, which is the repository of all of our karmic seeds. And so it's not you that, and your personal identity, that takes rebirth, but it is this structure of consciousness called substrate consciousness that then takes a rebirth with all of the propensities that baffle parents, that these children and infants seem to have a personality of their own already as they are beginning to develop. And so one of the ways, just very briefly, that you can become lucid in deep dreamless sleep is, first of all, again, you have that powerful motivation to recognize the dreamless state and maintain your awareness. And typically, and my Garmin watch, with its sleep functions, corroborates this for me, that immediately after you fall asleep, you enter a period of deep sleep. And this, for me, can be quite a long period. And so it's very important then how you fall asleep when you have set your intention and gone through the visualization, and it's very important not to be distracted by thoughts of tomorrow or yesterday when you're falling asleep, because this is, if you can maintain your lucidity while you're falling asleep, you can enter this dreamless state with lucidity as well. And I don't have a lot of experience with that, but when I have really put my mind to it, I have had some experience of it. And that is a powerful experience to be aware in a void, really, with nothingness. In a kind of this very dense luminosity. And of course, this then is what really will prepare you to remain lucid during this period of the black near attainment, during the dissolution process after death then, or while dying. And the point is that if you can maintain lucidity during deep dreamless sleep, then you will naturally, when dream appearances arise, you will enter the dream lucidly. And this then is exactly what we are trying to achieve, maintaining lucidity during the black near attainment, so that when the clear light of death then arises, that we will be lucid through the beginning of that stage also. And then if we can be lucid and remain present with that clear light of death and rest there and dwell there, that is then enlightenment by way of the Dharmakaya. So all of these practices of dream yoga and in the dream Bardo have direct application for not only seeing the truth of existence for this life, but also preparing us to be lucid through the whole process of dying. And especially this being lucid in dreamless sleep will prepare us to really be relaxed and aware during the Bardo that we'll be talking about next week, which is the Bardo of Dharmata, which is appearances of pure luminosity that occur. And then especially the practices of nighttime dream yoga are going to prepare you for the final stage of the Bardos, then the Bardo of becoming, in which all of the appearances are karmically determined. And that's when it's going to become very important to not be fooled by these deceptive appearances and think they are real. Because when you are able to see their true nature at any stage of the Bardo, of these appearances, then the Bardo stops. Because you leave the Bardo because you have seen that all these appearances are just dreams. You see them for what they are. And so I think you can see the stakes of practicing lucid dreaming and the potential for what it can lead you to. So I'm sorry that I really lost track of the time in talking about these exciting subjects. So I'm afraid that we don't have time for a meditation, but I will just say that there are two practices that you are all very familiar with already, shamatha practices, that can really improve the outcome of your aspirations for lucid dreaming. So the first of these is taking impure appearances of the mind as the path, or taking the mind as the path. And this is really how you can prepare yourself for maintaining lucidity in the dream state, nighttime dream yoga. And then awareness of awareness as you are falling asleep. If you are aspiring to maintain lucidity in the deep dreamless sleep, the way to do that is to be practicing awareness of awareness as you are falling asleep. So just pure awareness with no object, and then maintain that lucidity and take that then into what will be your first episode of the night, which is an experience through the substrate. So I think we'd better leave it at that for tonight. And I understand that if you need to leave right away, that you can do that. Or if you have any questions, I'd be happy to stay and try to answer those for you. Yeah.
I actually have a question, which is convenient because I'm holding the mic. Would you mind reviewing the visualization in terms of the way it lays out? What's in front, back, left, and right?
I think maybe for the notes for next week, I will add this script to it, because that would, I'm sure, be very helpful. So let's see, I have to find that. Well, I'll just do it from memory. So it's Anuttara. Anuttara.
I was going to say, is it the same translation
Yeah.
as surpassed mantra?
Yeah, well, I don't know if it is or not, but it's those syllables.
Yeah.
So Anuttara and Om. And so Om is in the center of the four-petal lotus. A is in the front. Anu is on the right. Ta is behind, and Ra is on the left. And then you, first of all, can probably remember the stages then as you're becoming more and more drowsy. So first of all, you focus on the Om, and until you become quite drowsy, and then in front, Nu Ta Ra as you are falling asleep. Then back to the Om finally, just as you are falling asleep.
Sorry, it's visual. It's not flat like in the picture. It's like a lotus that you would hold, that you would see with the...
Yeah, so you have to remember that you're on your side. And so it's not a lotus like that, but it is a lotus flat like on your chest.
Oh,
Yeah.
I see. Okay, I have to reboot. Okay.
So then where is behind and where is in front?
Wait a minute. I just told you the wrong thing. So it's actually horizontal. Yeah. Otherwise, front and back don't have any reference point. Yeah.
So front, back, like that.
Yeah. With in the front. Yeah. Without in the front, yeah. Anuttara.
It's not traveling as you're seeing the different chakra points through the different letters. It's in the same place. You're just thinking in those areas. In other words, it's not
Yeah.
like you're bringing it down.
No, you start the visualization at the throat chakra with the red lotus.
And where does the material of dreams come from? The dream content. Is that karmic?
Yeah, definitely. So all of the dream appearances, that's a very good question. Why this now is the big question always, right? Why am I experiencing this now? And the most satisfying answer that I know of is causes and conditions. And one of the primary conditions is karma. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much. And next week we will get into the Dharma or the Bardo of Dharmata, which is what happens after if you don't recognize the clear light of death and are proceeding through the Bardos. So have a good week, and thank you for coming.